You are listening to the Hammersley Brothers e-commerce podcast. Like what you hear and want to take the shortcut on your e-commerce growth? Join hundreds of brands that work with us and head over to joinhb.com. That's joinhb.com and see how we can help you further. Join our members and smash your targets and unlock the profits within your e-commerce site. Hello Ian, how are you?
Hey Mark, yes, I'm very well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, how's mum and dad?
All right.
Mum and dad's, we are brothers, obviously, so we use this call as a podcast to communicate about our family.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do WhatsApp chats like normal. We have a podcast.
Yeah.
And this is how we talk about our family.
How my father lost the car keys at the gym.
True story.
True story, yeah. This is the fourth in the series of podcasts on why your ads aren't scaling. And we have done 3 other topics that I've forgotten, but today is why your follow-up game is limp. That's what I've written down on my notes. Basically, it's all about follow-up today. So last one we did was about your ads are boring. And then there was one about the model. I can't find the text on the when I wrote down exactly what all of them were. Bear with me. You talk whilst I find it. Say something interesting.
People do say they like the fact that the Hammersley Brothers podcast is, it's raw and it's not, it's a bit unpolished. I think basically they're saying it's a bit shit. I think that's what's just happened.
How unpolished can we get?
Yeah.
So here we go. The 1 to 5. 1 was it's not your ads, it's your margin, it's your model. So we went through that. We looked at the model. Number 2 was your landing pages suck. So it was like looking at how people are landing on the site, how they're interacting with that first experience, the busy restaurant test. We talked a little bit about that. Last week we did your ads are boring, where we talked a little bit about how it's kind of like not necessarily just boring, but how Google, Meta and the big advertising platforms work and what they want you to do. Scratch their back, they'll scratch your back kind of thing. So we talked about that. And so today we're talking about follow-up because, particularly like sites, our e-commerce sites like Betting Envy, without the follow-up, we wouldn't really have a business. Like it's night and day. So a lot of the time people do some follow-up, but they focus on the wrong things. So can I just define, before you go off on a tangent, just go close to the mic, can I just define what we mean by follow-up, right? What we mean by follow-up and why we're talking about it in terms of ads, it is the time between them clicking on an ad, whether or not that's Meta or Google, it's the first click and the ultimate sale, right? Yeah.
It's the time between those two things. And, in the middle of that time, what you do in an e-commerce website between the first click and the last click and the sale can have a huge influence on the conversion rate, right? So if you have no follow-up in place, and we'll define what we mean by that in terms of the channel and stuff, is that, if you imagine if you had no conversation with the person who's gone from first click to making this sale, obviously that's not going to help the sale. But if you have a really good, if you take a physical sales approach, take a physical shop, take something that's really relevant, take somebody selling a sofa for $5,000, and if you have a really good experience, you go into the sofa shop and you're looking for, and you maybe get a sample. Right, you're looking around, you're greeted, you maybe get a sample. And then the shop will then follow you up saying, how do you get on with the sample? How do you get on? Do you want another sample? And then taking all the way through to the guy, the delivery. Like, I'm not going to go through the nuances of but you get the idea that if you got one shop that has a good follow-up and another shop that has no discussion, they literally have no chat whatsoever, then obviously who's going to win? So that's what we mean. But I think in the e-commerce world, people assume that by some miracle that they click on an ad and then they buy and they're just going to do it. It's going to happen. But obviously there's a lot that we can do to influence that. And that's what we mean by the follow-up. Your follow-up is Limp is the title that you said. Can I put it, the main channel we're talking about is email. here and how we use that for the automated remarketing, but we could also put the same frame in terms of Google remarketing and Facebook remarketing too. It's the same concept, and I'll pass the mic back to you. But when I was thinking about this tonight, because we were, chatting about with the podcast, and I was saying, look, the easiest way to explain it is you don't take the sofa example. It's a good example, actually. You don't wake up in the morning and go, hey, I'm going to buy a sofa today. I've never thought about it before, but do you know what? I fancy buying a sofa. And do you know what? The first sofa I see, I'm going to buy. I'm not going to look at anything else. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to discuss it with my partner. I'm just going to buy it on a whim. I'm not going to do any research. I'm going to do no discovery. I'm just going to buy the first one I see. That's obviously not the case. That very, very rarely happens. The number of days on average for sofas in the UK, and I can't see why it's different anywhere else, is from looking to buying is 45 days. So the average time length is 45 days. Now, what is that? The two problems with that. Number one, it cocks up your tracking completely because Google is blind because it doesn't have a bloody clue. But also, the follow-up is absolutely critical. So in that case, we would put great emphasis on email capture. Email capture. How can we? So rather than trying to sell the sofa, we were trying to get the email. So that's what we mean. That's an example. If you got what would you add to that?
Well, even if you take something like bedding, where the sales cycle is really short, like 2 days, 2-3 days at max. Maybe a lot of people are buying that day. We still get a huge amount of sales at the weekend when we do a promotion through the email from people who've never bought before. So that, obviously for someone who has a long sales cycle, capturing the email address and following up is almost life or death, really. But even for a short sales cycle, there is that. The only case it isn't.
It's a turbocharger. Yeah.
The only case it isn't, is when you're selling something very cheap. So we used to do, a long time ago, we used to do the ads for like Love Heart sweets, those Love Heart sweets, that kind of stuff. And they were selling them online. There was no point doing remarketing for that because the sweets, they're like, you either buy the sweets or you don't. You're not going to go, oh, I'll go and buy some sweets. It's like it's a purchase. It's like a, the till. Well, I can't what we call sweetie pages. We used to call them sweetie pages, didn't we? Effectively, the sales made or it isn't. So there are cases where remarketing isn't as important, but for most businesses where there's competition and other people are, and then it's a considered purchase, it is going to be super important.
I think I'd be hard pressed to think of it because the businesses where your follow up is less important is when the sales cycle is very quick, the buying window is very very quick, and it is a problem solving rational
like
purchase.
A locksmith. There's no point emailing them a week later and saying, "Hey, did you get your lock sorted out?" It's like,
I was going to use the example of a car battery. A famous example, car battery. You need, if you're looking for a car battery, and it's not like a leisure battery or a jet ski battery or a camper van. It's literally your car. Your Ford Focus or whatever Ford thing. You need it really quick. So and also it's hard to get the email anyway. So I think, but even in that scenario where it is a really short buying window and it's a problem-solving rational purchase, I'd still do it. I would still do it. I would still get the email. I would still email because email the follow-up, and when we say follow-up, we will talk about the other channels now, but the follow-up is the single biggest, cheapest marketing activity you can ever do, purely because you are communicating to a buyer that is warm already. They are warm already. They've been in your shop. That what they've looked at. If they've added to cart. That they are actively making the decision of whether or not to buy. So it's hence why it's absolutely, it's a no-brainer to do this. It's the cheapest, fastest, easiest way to influence your conversion rate. But the first thing we see when we meet loads of e-commerce businesses is they have no regard for how you capture the email, or they're using the 10% off, and they're getting maybe 1%, 2%. I mean, the betting envy example. I mean, it's the simplest business model in the world because we've architected it that way. We like to find the absolute fundamental simple business model, and we run it really hard in that way. Betting is an example of that. We when we do an email at the weekend, we'll be getting like $30,000-$40,000 a day. So we'll do $100,000 in a weekend easily.
Mostly.
And we wouldn't have done. Yeah, and it's all email. Yeah, and it's email. We're emailing the product. It's like priming the pump.
Mostly
building up the
new
pump.
New first-time customers as well.
Yeah. And it's so. And what that does in terms of marketing and ad spend is that because you run the ads. I do all the other bits. I do all the fun stuff. You do all the the ads. And the team, you manage the team.
The other way around.
Yeah,
but ads are the fun bit.
That you'll run the ads aggressively, a bit more aggressively, because there's a big sale coming up. So essentially, what happens when the emails go out at the weekend with the sale, the ROAS goes off the clip because the conversion rate goes up, and then the ROAS goes up, obviously, because the conversion rate, ROAS is driven by conversion rate. So it turbocharges the ROAS like nothing that you've ever seen or witnessed before. It's a well-targeted offer. Hit to the new people. Same bloody thing. So I don't want to bang on and on about it, but what would you say? Like, email is an obvious one. I mean, and don't faff around with your flows until you've got like at least 5% of your email being captured.
Data capture. And that's people do come to me all the time and say, I need to get my welcome flows sorted out. And I'm like, well, what's your data capture rate? They go 1%. You go, well, stop messing about, because you could easily get your data capture up to 3%. You're getting 3 times as many emails. Even if you've got a crap email, you're going to do 3 times as better straight away. And you're not going to improve a welcome email and get 3 times the result, like from a better welcome email. So,
and it is an example of typical inefficiency of time that we obviously work with thousands of people over the years, and and obviously when people join our e-commerce mentoring program, it's these things that happen, like that example where they are faffing around with the email flow, thinking that that's going to move the needle, yet not looking at the email capture and only having like 1 to 2% email capture. That is an example of what happens all throughout e-commerce, unbeknown, and it's not your fault. It's just that you're hearing people say, you've really got to get your flows. My revenue, my breakthrough was the flows. Just think about it. Just think about, ignore all the shit you hear and think about it from a common sense.
Well, betting envy, I think we only had like 1 abandoned cart email in the sequence until we were doing about 3 million a year or something ridiculous. Like it was just other things that were more important than doing like massive amounts of focus on the flows. But I think you're going to ask me about remarketing.
Well, I was going to say that. I'll just finish off this one, but we spend a lot of time talking about how we capture email and testing different things across the whole lot. And normally it's pretty straightforward in a way. Mark, follow up from other channels then. So we talked about email, that's obvious, get the timings right, etc., build up the email captured aggressively. What about the other channels? What about Google and Meta itself in terms of the remarketing, the follow up? What would your like 101 basic response be to that? And can you give me some examples of big businesses or small businesses or e-commerce businesses that have had breakthroughs because of your geniusness? and how you've approached this?
Well, I mean, 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, remarketing was all manually done. You had to set it all up. You had to get your audiences and you say, these people have been on the site this amount of time and follow up for those kind of things. And same with Facebook, you would set up those audiences and then remarket to people. And you can still target certain audiences on Facebook and Google, but a lot of them remarketing now is baked in. So if most people are running PMax, remarketing's baked into PMax. You don't really have any control over the remarketing. It's baked in there. The other thing is Advantage Plus. Advantage Plus is going to do the remarketing. And if anything, Meta is probably going to overserve ads to your bottom of funnel, if anything. So it's going to remarket probably too much. Like if anybody sets up like a middle of funnel or bottom of funnel and they're not spending that much, they'll see the frequency on it go over like 10 very quickly. Even on I saw someone yesterday, $20 a day, they've got like a frequency on it really, really high. So probably the likelihood that you're not doing remarketing if you're running Google ads and Facebook ads is quite low, unless there's a caveat to that in Google ads. Some people are running standard shopping campaigns. If you're running standard shopping campaigns, you're not going to be doing remarketing out the box. And if you want to do remarketing, it's actually quite complicated. Google has made it very complicated for you to do remarketing because you have to set up all the manual tagging of all the products and send all the information back and stuff like that. If you're on PMax, it'll do it for you. So just let that be known. If you're running standard shopping, you're probably not going to be running remarketing in Google
Actually, we
ads.
saw that with a big brand, didn't we? In the confectionery, FMCG, huge big brand, and they switched from PMax to standard search and standard shopping, and all the remarketing as a consequence.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it's not necessary. Like you can do remarketing in search campaigns, and you can do it in display network and stuff like that. And sometimes it's easier to set up if you don't need to follow them around with the exact product that they saw. So like if it's like that company and you're just selling some confectionery, you could probably just get them in with the offers that are going on and follow those people around with a kind of offer.
Well, let me talk about, I'll ask you a question if you don't mind, just to frame it. So we talked about, the technology, it's in PMax, which is the Google side of it, and it's in Advantage Plus. Is that enough? Is that it? You just leave it to PMax and Advantage Plus? What strategy? Different ads, timing, frequency you mentioned.
Like again, like it is baked in. So when you're filling out your asset groups inside your PMax campaigns, you're putting videos in there and you're putting like images in there. Google will not show there's a kind of level of impression share you get with that if you don't have all your sizes of images. So the lady in Dublin who always tells me off for not doing all the things I should do as a premium partner and stuff like that stuff. One of the things she was talking to me about last time was the fact that some of my accounts hadn't got the square videos. So we had the horizontal videos and we had the vertical videos, but we didn't have the square videos. And the square videos is like quite a big, one of the ad formats that they've got quite a lot of impression share for. So there's things like that you've just got to get right. But again, Google have made it so obvious. It's like they'll just tell you. It's like you need square videos so that we can remarket to people on
Which was
these places.
A couple of times you've told people not to put videos in, and presumably that's something to do with you don't want it to show on display network. Tell me the scenario of that.
So that was a B2B company. So it was a B2B company, or it was someone like it was water filters. So like people who buy water filters have a very distinct time when they want to buy a water filter, and so if you've tended to bought the product, you don't want to be remarketed to. So there's no massive point of remarketing to them after the fact. So it's a bit like the locksmith. Like you wouldn't want to remarket to the locksmith that came in. You want to be right there on those keywords, bidding on those people for that stuff. But then the remarketing is probably mute, but Google might not realize that and start spending money on the display network. So there's certain cases where I don't really want to have ads all over YouTube for something I wanted the budget to be spent much more on the front of the funnel, which is like the opposite of like selling a sofa, where I really need to show the person the sofa over and over again so that they can go, that was the sofa we liked. That one looks nice. That's the sofa I'm going to get. So there are instances where I will deliberately ignore those messages in Google because I don't want that spend to be spent on that follow-up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's horses for courses a little bit. But I think that the only other thing is we used to use a service called AdRoll, and AdRoll could do the remarketing across, or Criteo, they could do remarketing across not just the Facebook and Google platforms, but like the Yahoo and all those stuff. And they had some other inventory. But we stopped using it mostly because I think like 95% of their inventory was Google and Facebook. And don't quote me on that because I've got no idea. I haven't used them for years. So there are services that will do, remarketing for everything. I just didn't find it wasn't game changing enough to add that complexity to my marketing stack. So I did write to them and say, look, I want to opt out of Google and Facebook and then run it across the other ones. But it just wasn't, for me, it wasn't that massive. And so I was like, well, I'm pretty sure that my budget is well spent on Google and Facebook for this brand. So you can do it outside of that. The other thing is that we haven't talked about is SMS, when you would use SMS remarketing and when you wouldn't. And so the purchase where you're not going to get loads of repeat business. So you're not going to be repeat business. So if you're selling something like a wedding dress, it's always my example. Like why, and we say we collect the SMS, great, keep your powder dry for Black Friday or keep your powder dry for like your mid-season sale or something. Maybe use SMS once or twice a year.
If you're selling a wedding dress, you hit them.
Yeah, there's no point, is there? There's no point. You might as well use it in your follow-up for your new people email addresses or SMSs if people haven't bought. Because there's no point saying, oh, we'll just wait to Black Friday because the bride's going to be married by that stage. So if you've got like a one purchase model, you would probably bring SMS into that. The only other thing that I have done is for most people, I've started doing an SMS abandoned cart if I've got the SMS, because the value of that SMS is so high that it's actually outweighs keeping it for Black Friday for that one, because it's so on the money, it's so relevant. And a lot of people, we're assuming that sometimes we're thinking, I've got to push the person to buy and they don't want to speak to me and all that kind of stuff. But actually, sometimes they look at something, they really like it, and you send them an SMS and they go, oh, thank you, that was the product I wanted. I just forgotten what it was. And then they'll click on it, they'll go on the mobile and they'll buy it. And so the closer you send the SMS to the sign up.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry, I know I'm over talking you. No, but I remember doing a survey or being involved in a survey many years ago. And the number one reason people didn't go ahead with their purchase, and you're probably expecting, this was an e-commerce business. Why would they stop their purchase? In the middle of the cart or the checkout. And you'd probably say, oh, maybe it's because they thought it was too expensive, or maybe it was because the delivery was too expensive, or maybe there was some objection that we didn't handle, and it was none of that. It was just because they weren't sure if they wanted it, and because 95% of purchases we make, we don't really need. You don't really need them. Like take bedding, they can make do with the old bedding they've got. Or take a. I mean, even a car battery, you can probably make do with the one that it's a bit unreliable. But then take homeware, the sofa. They don't need the sofa. Take the new telly. They don't. Most of the time, people don't need the stuff that they're buying. So it's that decision: should I do it? And it's that sort of. That choice you're making, and that's why you need the nudge. And I think if people don't buy because we send them email, people don't buy because we send them an SMS, people don't buy because we're hitting them with a good Google remarketing or Facebook remarketing strategy. What we're doing is we're hitting the almost buyers, and that's why you get the conversion improvements. Is you hit the almost buyers, and the almost buyers is that group of people who should have bought, who did all the things that the buyers did. They went to your site for 5 minutes. They came back to your site 4 times. They did this, they did all of that, but they didn't buy. And it's those almost buyers. And that's what you're targeting in your remarketing. It's that little nudge that you need to push people down. And obviously we'll talk about the offer architecture and when to do an offer. And, we won't go, because it's a big topic. The follow-up obviously is like, what are you going to send? How are you going to send it? What are you going to say? What the timing intervals should be, the frequency of it. Should you have an offer on them? Should you not have an offer on them? When to do an offer, when not? All of that is part of the nuance in it. I mean, that's part of the offer architecture workshop that we do. It's one of the first things we'll do. Go through the whole shebang and how it impacts margin. But I think it's probably, we're basically saying have a follow up. Sorry, you were going to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you talked about asking people why they didn't buy. And what in my long career, I found that people don't know. They don't know why they don't buy. And they think they do, and they say a rational reason. And when they actually buy, you ask them why they buy, they say a reason. But a lot of the time, it's like, and I know this because I was a website and I was optimizing it, and a lot of people were saying that the shipping was too expensive, and that was the reason why they weren't buying. And so if I'd taken that at face value and I was like, well, let's reduce shipping. It's just in this case, we couldn't reduce shipping because we needed to charge something shipping. We couldn't put the price up. It's very competitive. So all I did was make it easier to buy on the checkout, and I made it easier to buy. There was a few other things like a remarketing email and making it easy and auto plan the coupon and things like that. And I got a really big conversion rate boost. And so I think that people just bought because it was easier to buy. So if you'd ask them why they didn't buy, they go, I don't really know why I didn't buy, but I'm going to come up with a rational reason why I didn't buy. Oh, it was delivery. Or when you say, why did you buy? It's like, well, I don't really know why I bought, but I bought because I thought it was a good quality product. Like you've got to be so careful because the mind makes a decision and then you come up with a rational reason why that decision was made. So, I mean, I'm not saying all surveying customers is a waste of time. You do get valuable insight from it.
At
some points,
and you do. I'll give you an example of that. Last night, and this is actually a company in our program, because it's an e-commerce business in our program, and I like to buy stuff off our clients, But last night, I bought an apple tree. Completely random. I've never looked at apple trees. Never thought about buying an apple tree.
I haven't got a garden.
I do have a garden. And it was 10 o'clock at night. And I think I was like, I was filling my time. I just put I put my 6-year-old to bed earlier, and and then I went to put my other kids to bed. And then I was like, what should I do? And then, I found myself thinking about stuff, and I went and bought an apple tree, and then I bought a lemon tree because of part of the upside. I could buy a lemon tree. Anyway, I did it, and there was no reason why. It just sort of came out, and it was exciting. I like buying stuff because I was bored.
Yeah.
I was at home.
If you hadn't bought it because you'd just been distracted at that moment, and someone had said, why didn't you buy the lemon tree? You go, I really had no intention of buying a lemon tree.
Really need a lemon tree.
I was just looking at a website for this stuff.
Yeah. But now I'm excited that my lemon tree and my apple tree is coming. And I've got cognitive dissonance, and I'm now looking for things to reinforce myself that I made the right decision. So now I'd say, there's loads of reasons.
I've been researching lemon trees for months.
Yeah, exactly. I know that you need 2 trees to pollinate, all that kind of jazz. So if you're asking me, if anyone knows about apple trees, this is the South germinating one. You don't need 2 apple trees. Because normally you need 2. 50 yards apart. I found this out after, obviously, because I went, I bought an apple tree, and then they went to research it. But anyway, I think the case in point was that sometimes there isn't a rhyme or reason. Make it easier.
Your remarketing needs to have messaging. Your emails need to have messaging to say, we've saved your basket. It's still there. You can click this button and it'll apply the coupon. You'll get this by a certain time. We've upgraded your basket to fast shipping. There's just like, you're just basically making it easier for them to buy, and miraculously a lot of those objections will just disappear, and they
just
get
hit
more
people
sales
at the right time. Normally when they've had gin and tonic, lying on the sofa at night, I go, let's just hit them.
SMS them and say, are you drunk? And if they say yes,
yes or
send
no,
them the offer.
Well, we always recommend hitting them with emails or SMS is when they are on their phone naturally, which is normally either in the morning at 8 o'clock, 7:30 at the weekend in the morning, or at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night when they've had their dinner. And it's those 2 moments that you hit them in that.
You have to be selling something interesting though at that point. You can't do the same for fridge spare parts. Maybe you can. I don't know, but you can usually see this in your data. You can see this in your data. The reason we saw that is because you started to see Bedding Envy was the time. There was a certain time on a Sunday when people were starting to buy, and you started sending the email at that time, and the response was much. Yeah.
So
there's a key point there.
The revenue on the day. When the follow-up went at the right time, it doubled the response, at any other time. So the timing of it and the frequency is key.
If you think about it, if you send an email, there's 2 ways of that person seeing the email. Either when it arrives, or going through some emails that have been delivered in the previous 3 hours. So they go, I'll look at my email. Let's see what came back in the last 3 hours. When they're looking at the past 3 hours, they're looking at your email alongside loads of other ones. So you're in a crowded room. If you manage to get your email pop up when they just happen to be looking at their phone, you are the single voice, and that single voice shouts way, way louder than the crowded room. So if you can send that email at that time when the majority of people are actually just browsing on their phone and something pops up, the response you get from the email is super turbo blasted, or whatever the word is.
So put all these things together, put your follow-up. You've got a kick-ass follow-up strategy. It's really, really well thought out. And you can do the same thing with samples, floor samples, all those kind of things. It's the same thing. It's just slightly extended. If you've got a kick-ass follow-up, it can make your ads work by and without it doesn't, so again, it's not just
you've
your
got
ads,
to have, the other thing you touched on a little bit was offer architecture dialed in. So when you are following up with people, your offer architecture, when we talk about offer architecture being the 3 stools, is like what the discount is, when it ends, and what the reason why is. And so we would always have amplification. Yeah. We would always have a reason why that was topical to now. So it's the beginning of March now. So, whatever's happening in March, it's disappearing under the table.
Yeah, just because I was looking at the fact you told me my microphone had a bit of gain on it, so I was looking at the back of my microphone.
It's a little bit late now.
Right.
I told you that about
it's the
25 minutes
But
ago.
they've obviously offer architecture makes it.
Yeah, so basically theming it to be relevant to now, rather than just having remarketing that is kind of set and forget. Because if you just done that, it's pretty boring, isn't it? It's like, hey, we got this offer on and it never ends, and this is an email.
Well,
that
if you
could
put
be
an offer
to
on
any time
that has, it loses its complete, the 3-legged stool.
Yeah.
If you don't know, we'll do another podcast about. Well, come and join the program. We'll do a workshop. Don't you come? Go and join the fucking workshop.
There's all that stuff. Go and join the programs. God's sake, gain us information for free. What do you want? Yeah.
How much more do you need?
We have got more subscribers since I've been asking people to subscribe, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Yeah. Like and subscribe to the Hammersley Brothers podcast.
See it happening live.
Finished. It's gone up by about 200 people. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Ian. I've got one
more
more on this one. I can't remember. There's one more to do on this series. What's next week? Next week is we're so far up on the WhatsApp message. We talk too much about rubbish. You are freaking out and changing things too often, not letting things optimize.
That's a big one.
So it's about the AI models. We'll talk about that next time.
And then we'll do a summary one as well about what we think, all of them in one go, and then as a recap, and then the hidden bonus reason why your ads really aren't scaling. Remember that one?
You have to be a subscriber for that.
Yeah, otherwise, that's why the podcast cuts out. The real reason you put your ads aren't scaling.
Yeah, we hold everything back.
Yeah. Okay. All right then.
Speak to you soon.
See you later. Thanks, guys.
Bye.